This is Empowering Homeschool Conversations.
We want families to come here and gain insightful strategies that empower them to successfully teach diverse learners at home.
Hosted by founder and CEO of SPED Homeschool, Peggy Ployer.
Our goal is that these powerful weekly conversations will boost your confidence to cultivate the best at-home learning environment for your student.
For more homeschool resources, go to spedhomeschool.com. You're listening to Empowering Homeschool Conversations with Peggy Ployer.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Empowering Homeschool Conversations. Today, we are going to talk about how to time box homeschool days based on student energy rhythms. Doesn't that sound amazing? And my guest today is Rachel Churiano, and she is a retired homeschooling mom, a professional educator, licensed homeschool counselor, and author. And she is here to talk about this amazing topic. Welcome, Rachel. I'm so happy to have you on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, for those of you that are joining us, just know that you can be part of this conversation. I know some of you sent in questions ahead of time. We have the ability for you to do that. If you want to look at our schedule and use the links, you can submit your questions for shows. Maybe you're going to miss the live, but you have questions about that topic. Just know you can go to our website at theempoweredhomeschool.com and look at the schedule and put that information in there. Also, you can join us live. And so if you are joining us live, just know you can put your questions, your comments wherever you're watching from. We are live right now on Facebook and YouTube and lots of places. So anyways, feel free to be part of this conversation. That's why we go live. So Rachel, I love to ask my guests when they first join the show, just why they're passionate about the topic that we're discussing today, and just give us a little information, more than the bio that, the short bio that I just read, just about you and anything else you want to share with our family, just so they know a little bit about your background.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, before I jump in, I did want to say that I am not a doctor, and by license, I am not a scientist. But I do have a passion for teaching people just about tapping into your natural energy and then time boxing based on that. Because here's the thing, as homeschoolers, you have this incredible advantage to take advantage of the natural sleep cycle, the natural being awake of kids. And if we can utilize that in the best way, you can be so efficient with your schoolwork that you can get it done 2-3 hours a day, right? Depending on the age, whether we're talking about 5-year-olds or whether high schoolers, and then boom, you have the rest of the day to go to the movies, to go to the museum, to go to the park, to dive into whatever you want to. Unlike the public school system or any traditional school system where boom, you're in the seat for 8 hours, all your energy's in there. By the time you're done, you really don't have any energy left for anything else. So I just want, and so I just really want to reach out to people who are homeschooling right now and give them the information and the power to have the best homeschool experience. And here's the thing, if it's not working out, try something new, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Right. And every week, every day should kind of be like a mini experiment. What went right? What went wrong?
I love that. Yeah.
Right. And that's the beauty of doing that, of course correcting. Whereas if you, let's say you put your kid in a school and it's not working out, you don't really have, you don't have the opportunity to change things around. It's kind of set in stone. So take advantage of this time that you have and jump into those rhythms. And so a little bit about my background. I started homeschooling in 2015 with my 4 and 6-year-old. My oldest one was not doing well in the school setting he was in. Some dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, which we can talk about later. But I just felt that at that time, I was going to give homeschooling a shot. I had taught in the public school system for several years, and I really tried to emulate my classroom as homeschooling, and I fell flat on my face. It was ridiculous. Like I have this memory
story
of
about that. Yes.
What's that?
We've heard many stories like that on our show, but those that have moved on after that, then it was good.
Right. And so it kind of went like this. I have this memory of the first day. I had my whole plan scheduled with my 4 and 6-year-old, and I had a hour scheduled for every subject. And I quickly learned within the first 6 minutes that that was not going to work. And so we
Yeah.
kind of had to course correct, right? And course correct and go about our
Yeah.
days. And so, for a better part of 8 or 9 years, I homeschooled. And really, if I have any good insight for homeschoolers, it's because I messed up so many times. And so, really, my mess is my message. And I just want to empower people who are homeschooling now that might be struggling. Don't give up. Look at what you're doing. Be
Yeah.
creative, use resources, talk to people, use the internet, and you can do this. You can make an
Mhm.
education plan that's gonna fit your kid/kids.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love when you talked about just the freedom to change. Our broadcast last week, actually, I interviewed a researcher. He does homeschool research, and he said, just of all the things, the advantages you have, that's one of the greatest things to accommodate special learners, is that freedom. And I love that you called it an experiment. And because oftentimes we feel like we have the schedule, we have to set it in stone, and then it has to work. And we failed if it didn't.
Right.
But looking at it as an experiment, just makes it feel like you have this release. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, well, it didn't work out. What did we learn from it? How can we move on? That scientific approach versus
Right.
just the,
And
yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Because I see so many people, they're like, "Oh, this homeschooling thing, it's just not working, and my kids are fighting." And it's like, well, let's take a step back. Are your kids crying
Right.
during lessons? Then don't continue to either A, use the same curriculum, or we can
Right.
get into it right now. Maybe you need to change when you're doing math to a different time of day. And we can
Mm.
start talking about that now. And what I talk about using your energy levels, because I know that was one of the questions and the main point that we're
Yeah.
talking about today.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, Deborah had asked, "Please describe an energy rhythm," since
Right.
that's in our
So
title. Yeah.
if you look at the idea of a chronotype, have you heard of this before?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so a chronotype is basically just your natural sleep and wake rhythm. Everyone's
Okay.
heard, are you a early bird or are you a night owl,
Mhm.
right? So this is just kind of the natural cadence of people. Now, according
Huh.
to Dr. Michael Brewis, he has this book called his book is called The Power of Now, and he
Hmm.
goes really into detail. And if you go to sleepdoctor.com, you can actually take this quiz and find out
Oh,
what your
cool.
chronotype is based on this. And he put little animals with them. But basically, if you keep all the variables the same, people have a natural cadence to when they wake and when they sleep. Now, for
Hmm.
me, my ideal time to wake up is between 5:30 and 6:30. That's just when my body
Hmm.
wants to wake up. When I go to sleep, anywhere from 9 to 10. If I can go to bed from 9 to 10 and wake up from 5:30 to 6:30, I'm gonna have a pretty good day. Now my
Hmm.
husband, he doesn't wanna go to bed till 12 or 1 o'clock. And because he's working on Pacific time, he won't get up till like 9 or 10, right? And
Right.
he's not lazy. I think our
Hmm.
society based on since the Industrial Revolution, right? People are like, "Oh, you
Right.
wanna sleep in, you're lazy." It's like, no, it's just when your body naturally
Right,
wants
because
to
he
go
was
to
working
sleep and
till midnight when you were sleeping. So, yeah.
exactly. Exactly. And so with kids, there's going to be a bit of standardized sleep and wakeness, right? So you're going to see little
Mhm.
kids before teenagers wanting to go to bed early and wanting to get up early as well.
Mhm.
That's why I think our education system right now has it so backwards, right? when do
Mm.
the when do the kids go to school later? Elementary, right? High schoolers,
Right.
my niece and nephew go to the same high school that I went to. Do you know what time they start? You know what time their first hour starts?
Oh, it's probably like 7 in the morning. It's
It's
ridiculous.
7:10 in the morning.
Mhm.
Now,
Yeah.
I have a memory of being in 10th grade or, yeah, 10th grade, I had geometry and I had math, first hour. Now, could you imagine 15-year-old me sitting in that classroom at 7:10 in the morning wanting to do geometry problems? Like, that's
Right. Yeah. No.
inefficiency at its
Your
finest,
brain
right?
isn't working at that time.
Right, but I didn't have the option. So as
Right. Exactly.
homeschoolers right.
Mm-hmm.
So as homeschoolers, we can look at our kids' natural rhythms and we can kind of correlate our school schedules with them. I just have a
Yeah.
study here I wanted to reference. I wrote it
Yeah. That'd be
down. I don't
great.
know what it is. There is a study. I can check my references later, but there was actually a shift from when kids are 14 to 19, their
Hmm.
sleep when they want to wake up is 2 hours later compared to
Wow.
the earlier, right? So they just
Mm-hmm.
need that sleep to sleep in
Right.
later. But
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, our education isn't seeing that, and they're doing our kids an injustice by having them come to school so early. My
Yeah.
high schooler,
Absolutely.
yeah, my ninth grader just took his PSATs this morning
Hmm.
and he got there at 7:45, and I told him, if they would've just let you guys sleep in for 2 hours and take it, I promise you everyone's test scores would have gone up. I
Oh,
promise you that would have
absolutely.
happened.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was on a panel once and they asked us, somebody had asked from the audience when we start school. And at that point I had all teenagers. And I was like, I don't want to answer this question because I'm gonna be like the oddball because I let my kids sleep till they naturally woke up.
Yes.
And then the lady two down from me said, "Oh, we don't start till afternoon." And I was like, "Oh, hallelujah." I'm in good company. But I think,
Right.
yeah, we need to talk about this more because it is okay. And then, my biggest fear was, oh goodness, when my kids get a job, they're never going to want to wake up. No, they
Mhm.
they realized I have to do this. They change their schedule. They get up for work. So don't have that fear that this is going to be like a lifetime that, or else they'll find a job that fits into that schedule that they need.
Yeah, and for sure, and they're not teenagers anymore, right? Their body
Right.
difference for sleep is gonna be different,
Hmm.
but I think if we can teach our kids this tool of tuning into their body and saying, "Okay, I need sleep, I'm gonna honor that," and so when they go to college, they know, "I don't wanna schedule that 8 AM chemistry lab because that's not gonna be
Right.
my best
Exactly.
my
Yes.
best time," right? So how do we so right. So how do we do this for people that are homeschooling that might have kids
Mm,
that are 5 years old and like whatever? So there's a number of
right.
different ways that you can do it. If you want to be really tech savvy, you can use this. I wouldn't do this with the kids, but if you want to just kind of look at your own natural rhythms, there's an app
Hmm.
called the Rise app, and I think it's $60 a year. I'm not quite sure. I used it all
Hmm.
last year. And so you put your phone by your bed at night, it tracks your sleep, it sees when you get up, and then based on the time that you went to bed, and the time you get up, it will actually track and will say, this is your 2 hour or 3 hour window that you're going to be peak performance, that you're going to have the
Hmm.
most energy. And I know, at least for me, it was usually 2 or 3 hours after I got up that I was the
Huh.
most cognizant and cognitively just on in sharp and on point.
Hmm.
Now that's a bit extreme. People might say that's not really scientific, whatever. But with the
Hmm.
kids, in order to teach this, it could be as simple as, okay, hey, listen, kids, for this week in homeschooling, we're going to have 5 check-ins a day. When you get
Huh.
up, and this is the thing, the variables need to stay consistent. So that means your diet needs to stay the same, your bedtime and your wake time needs to stay the same. We're not going to bed at 11
Right.
o'clock one night and 9 the other night. So if these
Right.
variables can stay as consistent
So pick a
as
week that you don't have too much planned.
totally. Pick a week.
Yeah.
And then you can just check in with them. If you have little guys,
Hmm.
at breakfast, give me, you can make a chart. You can either make a math problem out of this and just say, are you the energized smiley face? Are you the meh face? Or are you the tired sleeping face? And you can just say,
Hmm.
pick one, right? Or if you
Right.
have older kids, you can say, all right, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being, oh, I'm the most energized. I feel like I can do everything, or one,
Hmm.
I want to go back to bed. Like, where are you? And if you do
Right.
that at breakfast, snack time, lunch, snack time, evening, and right before bed, and you plot that, you will
Yeah.
see a rhythm to your days. And
Hmm.
normally, for everybody, there's going to be a 2 to 3 hour area where it's like, I'm on fire. I feel like I could just accomplish anything and do everything.
Huh.
And if you can kind of corner that, then you can
Right.
get all of your heavy lifting for schoolwork in, and it's going to be
Mm,
so efficient, and it's going to take a third of the time as if you try to put it at right when they wake up or maybe later or whenever it is for you. So does
right.
that kind of make
Hmm.
sense?
Yeah, it does. And because really in homeschooling, we only have about a maximum of 2 hours where you really have to be on point and focused with
Yeah,
your kids, to get really what needs to be done. The rest of it is a lot of fluff,
it is a lot of
fun,
fun.
and if we can build all of that around it when they're less energetic, then that math and the reading and whatever else needs all that higher amount of attention could
Yeah,
get done
absolutely.
quicker and with less pain on both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. And to even go a step further, I would say, whatever your hardest thing is, because we all have that hard thing, right? If it's,
Mhm.
and I keep saying math, and maybe your kids love math, but that wasn't necessarily the case in my house. So I'm just going to stick with math. So there's a quote from Mark Twain, and he says, if it's your job to eat a frog, it's best to do it first thing in the morning. And if it's your job to eat
Mm.
two frogs, it's best to eat the biggest one first. So once you've established this, and so the meaning behind that is, right, we what do we do when we have to set out for tasks? We check our emails, we might clean the
Mhm.
dishes, we might, because those are low bar things. Then they're like, oh, we're just getting working up to the thing. And then by the time when we actually
Mhm.
have to do the thing, we don't have any energy. So if you
Ah,
can find that,
yes.
right? So if you can find
Mhm.
that 2 to 3 hour window where your kids are the most focused and you're like, all right, we're going to do the hardest thing first because
Hmm.
I know that we're going to get this done. And what happens is
Yeah.
it might be a little bit harder to have that activation energy to go into it, but set the
Mm.
timer. I'm a huge fan of timers. If you're finding resistance with your kids, just say, I'm going to set the timer for 10 minutes. And
Mm.
if, hey, we're going to do this hard thing for 10 minutes and we're going to eat that frog. That's what I always tell my kids. We're just going to eat the
Yeah.
frog. And then once they
Mhm.
do it, it's really a cool thing. You will see that kind of propel them to want to do, now, dude, we got the hard stuff done. That's why I like to go
Yeah.
run. Yeah, to go running in the morning because 'cause I'm like, "Oh, I got the hardest thing done, and now I can
Mhm.
move on with my day." And so, yeah, it's just
Right.
finding that 2 to 3 hour window, finding your hardest subject first, doing that first, and then moving on like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it does. It feels like you've accomplished so much,
Mhm.
and then it's like taking this heavy weight off of you as well. We all know that, with projects, the more you procrastinate, you're taking up that energy of the procrastination along with everything else that you're doing, and
Yeah.
you tap yourself out of anything that you could have used effectively before then. So that
Yeah,
makes
and
tons of sense.
it makes tons of sense, and if we can get into the rhythm of this, then your kids know that, if they can get into the rhythm of using this tuning in with their body and finding their natural energy and saying, these
Mhm.
are the 2 to 3 hours, and then we're gonna tackle our tasks, then hopefully, at least the idea is, once they get old enough to, go to college or apprenticeship somewhere, they have these skills and tools in place.
Right, these are life
So
skills that
w
will help them in lots of different
right.
areas. Absolutely.
Exactly. So it's not about just accomplishing whatever schoolwork or curriculum you have. It's about implementing these skills for your kids
Hmm,
so that they can go ahead and be successful at whatever it is they want to do later on down the road.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yes,
Hmm.
and, um, starting out when they're younger is great. So what about, if
Yeah.
we are, in a bad schedule and we wanna course correct, like you
Yeah.
said at the beginning? Um, what would you do with maybe an older child or somebody who, we've a child that you've homeschooled for a while and they're frustrated at this point because your schedule hasn't been working, but you've been pushing it. I
Oh
know a
my
lot of
gosh.
parents
Yeah.
get that point, and you get to the almost that burnout phase. How do you change things around?
Mm. Yeah, that's a really great question. And as parents, like read the room, right? If you're
Mhm.
faced, and I'm not saying that kids are always going to be like, "Yeah, I want to do work," but if it's just brutal every single day, take a
Right.
beat. Take a beat, step back, and then bring your kids into the mix.
Hmm.
Because unless you have to do the schedule because you're working and this is the only time that we have, bring your kids into the mix, do that week-long journal for your energy. And then
Mm,
depending on their age, and this could be even be done as young as 5-year-olds, like have them pick it. When do you think we should do this work? And maybe they won't say, maybe you've been doing it from 9 to 12 because, like, we just want to get this done. But
right.
really, the ideal time might be 12 to 3. And you
Mm,
might, if you shift that, then you might find a completely different homeschool experience. Nothing's
right.
going to be perfect, but the
Hmm.
thing is, don't we kind of get into our rut, and so it's just not working. It's just not working. My kids don't listen. They're
Mm,
frustrated, whatever. But it's like,
right.
well, no. If you're in tune with it, you can be creative and you can change it around.
So
And
true.
the more buy-in they have with it, it's going to be successful. More
Absolutely.
successful, I should
Yes.
say. Yeah.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. We had a question from one of our viewers. Brandy had asked, similar to what we just talked about. She said, "Any suggestions for getting my son back on schedule?" But ADD and sensory overload was the
Mm.
two issues that he struggles with. Any particular suggestions for Brandy?
Yeah. So I love this question because isn't that the truth? Even kids that are not diagnosed with ADD or ADHD or sensory overload, it's kind of the same thing. I think it's
Mm.
insane the amount that we expect our kids to sit still and to pay attention.
Yes.
It is just insane. Julie Bogart of Brave Writer said, if you want to scan kids' attention span, it's their age plus one, right? So if they're 5, you got about 6 good minutes where you can, like,
That's
engage with them.
good. Yeah.
But one of the biggest things, that I think is super helpful is before you even step into doing school with your kids, it doesn't matter where you are, even if you're in the freezing cold, have them do some kind of physical movement. There was a
Mm.
study that was done, and they took a group of students all the way from elementary to high school, and they just did 10 minutes. 10 minutes of walking, and it wasn't even crazy before the school day. And
Yeah.
after about a quarter, everyone's grades went up that actually did the exercise. And so what happens
Wow.
is that when we physically move our bodies, we're able to, after we do that, to sit and focus. Like right before this interview,
Mm.
I went and I just went out for a walk, so let me get out for a
Right.
walk, and now I can focus on what we need to do.
Mm.
And Brandy, short amounts of time, I don't know how old your kid is, but that and plus one. And then we can
Mm.
focus. And then, hey, I used to tell my kids all the time, go give me 2 laps around the block. I don't care if you run, I don't care if you skate, do whatever, come back, bring they get back to it. So
Uh-huh.
let's be realistic in our expectations with how we want our kids to focus.
Mm.
And in addition, can you do movement while you are learning something? Be creative
Right.
with that, right? So
Mhm.
those are just some ideas off the top of my head that might be helpful.
Yeah, that's really good because, yeah, we do have that freedom again, and I think we do get too stuck to the idea that sitting is, the most effective way for anybody to learn. And
Mhm.
some people learn while they're moving, and waking up your brain with that activity just makes so much sense too.
Mm, mhm,
So does that
mhm,
affect? So for people like, say you happen to have better energy rhythms in the morning and you
mm.
have to do something in the evening. Maybe there's just something going on where your student is going to need to focus. Um, Getting that exercise, is that helpful for at least for a little while in getting that boost and getting that energy level up?
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, it could be done as little as 10 minutes. And if you do have, let's say, if you have some kind of scheduled thing in the evening and you
Mhm.
know that in the morning, I would just buffer in some time before then that we could have some downtime and some recreational time. So you're not going all day. And then on top of that, right, you're still
Right.
expecting this kid to focus. Like make sure you
Mhm.
give him some buffer time, especially if you know that he or she's gonna dip at that hour. Like, let's
Right.
buffer them up and just, hey, I know you have this thing in an hour, so let's just relax. Let's have some
Mhm.
snacks or lay around or whatever it is that, would bring some more rest and restoration to him.
Yeah, yeah. So what about energy levels and meal times? Because I know, there's that
Mm,
digestion in
mm,
there. Do you have any suggestions for like is it good to have some downtime after you eat?
Yeah. So I think a lot of that plays into what you are eating, right? So
Yes,
I'm not a
absolutely.
dietitian or a nutritionist in any way, shape, or form, but I know after I eat, if I eat a very poorly choiced meal, I am definitely not going to want to do a whole lot of anything. But yeah,
Right.
I think that we could consider that after you eat a meal, perhaps yeah, you want to have some downtime after that. But again, everybody's different.
Mm,
Food affects everybody
right.
differently. The type of food that you're
True.
eating. I mean, if you're
Mhm.
eating tuna and almonds in a salad, is it going to really tank your energy? Probably not. You're going to probably have
Hmm.
more energy.
Right.
So I think it just depends on what you're eating. But yeah, and the thing is, like, maybe you are like, I've noticed that every time I eat, it doesn't matter what I eat. I know my energy dips. Great, then
Mhm.
schedule that into your day. I know that after lunch, I'm gonna need an hour to whatever to just chill. Fantastic.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Because yeah, some kids will just really hype up and others will just calm down and yeah, following those rhythms is important. And so, yeah, so what if you have kids, one that, is on one end of the scale and one that's on the other?
Yeah, that's a great question, and my heart goes out to you if that is you with differing kids. And I mean, to say that to that, I mean, you just want to honor that to the best of your ability that you can. I know life's
Right.
not perfect and it is
Mhm.
easy to get all of that in there, but again, look at your schedule, be creative. Um, if one is earlier in the late afternoon and the other one's earlier in the morning, like what can you do? Just
Hmm.
brainstorm. Ask
Right.
your if your husband or whoever your mom or whatever can help out in any way or neighbors. That's the whole thing about homeschooling is just
Hmm.
you know solving problems and being creative to give our kids the best educational experience that they can based on how they are.
Absolutely.
And to this
Mhm.
point, I will say human beings are ever changing, right? We have kids that are physically growing and
Right.
always changing.
Yes.
So how it's going to be one semester might not be how it is the next semester.
That's a good point.
And
Mhm.
that's how I think at the end of every week, we should just take a couple minutes and be like, how'd it go? What can we
Mm.
change? What can we do?
Yes.
Um, and so I know for my family, we're not homeschooling this year, but we do have family meetings every single week.
Mm.
And we ask, well, how'd it go this week? What can we do
Right.
differently to,
Mhm.
be better parents, to be better as a family? And there's some
Yeah.
great suggestions, from
Hmm.
so just be open and keep working at it because you'll find a rhythm that will be better if you're really struggling. So don't lose heart.
Yeah, that's really good advice. It does change. Your kids
Mhm.
are in different activities too, and
Mhm.
that all falls into the mix, and some of it takes more energy than you'd like it to.
Yeah.
And there's seasons. So yes, stopping in and reevaluating instead of saying, "Oh, we found the magic schedule."
Yep.
And now it's going to work forever. And sorry to break your bubble on this one, but there is, if you find and hit a rhythm, it may be for a short time.
Yep.
And then you're going to have to change it again.
It's going to change, I promise you. So I say if you're in a
Yeah.
season and it's great, that's awesome, enjoy it. If you're in a
Mhm.
season and it's bad, just wait because it'll change. So
Right. Yeah, that's very wise advice. Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. So it's yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, go, I was going to pop into one of our questions, but I'd love
Oh,
for
sure.
to hear what you have to say first.
Well, I was just gonna jump in and start talking about how we can start time boxing based on
Yes. Yes,
these
absolutely.
energy. Okay, so have you heard of time boxing before?
I have a little bit, but
Okay.
not into much depth. So yes,
So
please share with us.
in the most simple terms, time boxing is basically just taking a segment of time for for part of your day and scheduling an activity, a task, something to that. And
Mm.
so for homeschoolers, especially unschoolers, I know this could make you maybe want to throw up and be like, "Ooh, I could never do that. This is horrible. She's asking me to be I feel like I'm suffocating because this is ridiculous." But I
Right.
promise you that if you can get into the habit and the discipline of doing this, your life, you will have so much more time. There will be less stress, and you will just have a sense of freedom. So
Hmm.
there's a guy, his name is Brian Tracy, and he said, for every 5 minutes that you spend planning, you save 20 minutes in execution, right? And
Wow.
so our kids love routines, right?
Hmm.
Whether you're homeschooling or not, they thrive on routines. When I
Yes.
taught in the classroom, I taught in an inner city school in Detroit, and at Christmas break, I literally had a girl that was sobbing, and I thought, "Oh my
Hmm.
gosh, what's going on?" Like, she's like, "I just don't want to go home. I never know what's going to happen." So she loved the idea of coming to school for a
Oh,
routine and its
right.
comfort of she knew what was happening.
Hmm.
Okay. So, if you want to talk about time boxing, and I'm going to keep this in the most simple terms there is, you can eat. I mean, there's apps for time boxing. I have not
Oh,
done this.
really?
Yeah.
Hmm.
And now it's really crazy. Like, you can even use AI to do this. And I mean, I'm not going to go off
Oh, we
and
had
talk
just 2
about AI.
shows on
Oh,
AI, and how to use
what do you
AI
guys
for
talk about?
homeschool planning. Yeah, and even
Yes,
to write
I
your
love it.
curriculum. It was amazing. So if
It's
you missed that,
amazing.
audience, yes, just put it into ChatGPT. See
Well,
what comes up.
ChatGPT, but also u.com. You just have to use your Google thing, but
Oh,
oh
okay.
my gosh, you guys, oh my gosh, it just blows my mind. I always tell my
Mm.
kids, I'm like, "Oh," they're like, "Are you talking about AI again?" Mom, stop talking about it. Okay, we get
Yeah.
it. It's but yeah, so there's amazing things. So if you want to talk about time boxing, just take for every hour you're up, you put a box next to the hour, right?
Hmm.
So some people want to do a half an hour, 45 minutes. For simplicity, I'm just do a box next to each hour. And of course, let's take, if you want to do it a day at a time, if you want to do a week at a time, what I normally do is I'll either do it the night before when I'm lying in bed, literally write out every single hour of my day and then put it in there, or
Wow.
I'll do it in the morning. But so then you want to look at your natural rhythms, right? I know my kids
Yes.
are most up from 11 to 2, and that's when we get all of our stuff done. Sweet. Let's put that in there. We're going to do our hardest thing first. We're going to do our math, at least in our case. We're going to do our math first and everything. And then, of course, you want to put any solid commitments. We have sports practice, we have piano practice, we have Bible study, whatever it is, you're going to put that
Right.
in there. Now, here's the beautiful thing about time boxing, it's not just about scheduling. If you want relationships to be better in your life, you can put on your time
So
box
important.
from 5 o'clock.
Yes.
I'm gonna go. This isn't homeschooling, but I'm gonna hang out with my husband. Right? I'm gonna go
Mhm.
for a walk with my husband. I'm gonna go whatever.
Right.
Whatever it is. For a season of our life, I felt like we were just kind of in this way of just consuming. Like we'd watch
Mm.
shows, we'd play video games, we'd do all these things, but we weren't creating. And I feel like God
Mm.
created us to create, right? He
Absolutely.
gives us
Yes.
gifts and
Yes.
talents to create and add value to the world.
Mm.
And I felt
Mhm.
like we weren't doing that. So I literally in my
Oh.
time box had this
Mhm.
hour of create. Like I don't care if you write a piano song. I don't care if you do an art project. I don't care if whatever, as long as you are creating and giving that
Love that.
God-given talent, right?
Yes.
So whatever
Mhm.
we want to see come to fruition in our homeschooling, we can
Yeah.
put it in our time box, right?
Mm.
And so
Mhm.
what happens is another good thing that we can do too, and this is homeschooling or just in general, is I know with me, I'll be, in the shower in the morning and be like, oh, I have to do that thing. And then I won't think
Mhm.
about it. And then, like, maybe the next day I'll be like, oh, I have to do that thing, but I won't do it. Right?
Oh, yeah, I get that.
So now what I do is on my phone, I literally have in my notes app, like if something pops up in my mind, I take 10 seconds. And for me, like lately, it's I have to fix the address numbers of my house. So I got to fix the address numbers in my house. And then in my time box, I have an hour each day to go and do the stuff on that list. So,
Ah.
okay, what's on my to-do list? And I can just
Mhm.
scratch it out and like whatever. So it's using the idea of time box and the idea of
Mhm.
homeschooling is really beneficial because we can boom take our 2 to 3 hours that we know that we're going to
Right.
homeschool and use that. But then also, like, what do you want to see in your homeschooling? Do you want to
Right.
connect with nature? then go ahead
Mhm.
and put that in your time box. You know that every day from 3 o'clock, we're outside at the park. What is it? Do you want to create? Let's put a creating hour in there. You want to exercise, which is so hard sometimes, especially here in Michigan
Yes.
in the wintertime. Let's put a half an hour in that, we're gonna do that. Now,
Uh-huh.
obviously, you're not gonna be perfect, right? We're gonna have
Right.
just seasons we're not gonna or days that we're not gonna want to do it, but we have now a schedule that we can look
Mm.
to. And you know what it does really? It takes the fatigue out of decision making. And once you have that, you
Yes,
have
there's so
all
much
this
fatigue in that.
energy,
Right.
so much fatigue. You have all this energy to execute as opposed to like, okay, well, I have this 10 things to do. I don't know what I'm going to do next. Or now the kids are
Mm.
asking you to do this. And now it's like, I don't know. But if you have it,
Right.
so give it a shot. It's not going to be perfect. Don't give up on it. Keep playing
Hmm.
around with it. And I promise you, it
Right.
will definitely help you out. And, be flexible. Like if stuff comes up
Right.
and you have to scrap the plans for the day, scrap the plans for the day and try
Mm.
again tomorrow, right?
Right.
Every
Absolutely.
day is just an experiment. Let's see how we can do
It's
better tomorrow.
Uh-huh. So when you
Yeah.
time box, do you do every day pretty much identical, or do you change? I mean, different days of the week. Maybe you have like a standing like class for
Yeah.
a student during the day. So, um, do you then just do different days of the week? They're different, or do you try to keep that schedule pretty much consistent, other than the times that you're gone?
Yeah. So I would say, I mean, I think as human beings, we love routine, and the more
Yeah.
that we can stay standard, the better we're going to be at executing it. So,
Yeah.
for me in my own life, I know that I have a schedule from 9 to 10 that I either going to go run or that I'm going to lift weights, right?
Hmm.
Um, and for me, it's just gotten into the routine. It's like I don't want to do it, but it's in my time box, and I know my body's gotten into the rhythm of like, okay, it's 10 o'clock, we're gonna do this or whatever.
Yeah.
And with your kids, the same way. So now, if you
Hmm.
are consistent for a week or two, they'll come to you and be like, "Hey, mom, it's time to do this," right? And
Yes.
that's a be. You don't have to do anything. They know, right?
Hmm.
And make it fun too. Like make it don't make it be a chore. If your things to go out in nature, find other homeschoolers that want to go and do hikes with you or find other friends or neighbors or whatever to do that thing that might be a little bit hard, but you bring
Right.
community around it and it makes it more
Oh,
desirable to do.
absolutely.
Yeah, so I would
Yes,
say the more that
yes.
you can stay consistent throughout the days, the probability of you executing it is probably going to be higher.
Okay. Yes, that does make sense. Because yeah,
Yeah.
kids will just say, "Well, what happened to what we normally do?" Like, yeah, that day to try to change things up and say, "Well, this is, this day schedule and the next." Yeah, I could see that getting really confusing fast.
Yeah, and you can even have the kids, have the kids write their own, right? Don't do it
Mhm.
for them, because I mean, I don't like it when someone comes and tells me like, "This is what we have to do." Like, you come on, let's do it
Right.
together. Or if they're
Mhm.
teenagers, let me see what your day looks like. And again,
Right.
for those of you that like want to vomit because it seems like it's way too much work, just give it a try, because you're gonna have so much more energy because you're taking away that decision fatigue. And yeah,
Right, and it's not like a lesson plan or a set schedule that a curriculum gave you that you had no choice,
yeah,
in doing, and it's like, "Open the book, do the plan." You have, like, boxes, like you said, of this hour of time that's yours. I mean, you have the
exactly.
freedom to do within that box, and it's an experiment as well.
Yeah.
I just wanna reiterate when you said that at the very beginning, that you don't know if it's gonna work or not, but try it.
I
So
mean,
you
life is
might like
just
it.
one big right. Life is just one big experiment. Keep trying different things and find what works and stay with that until it doesn't, and then try something else.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
if this is proven, and it does show that you save time, you save mental energy,
Mhm.
that, you're gonna be more effective, why
Mhm.
not?
Why not?
Because yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, it's one of those tools that, when your kids if your kids learn how to do this, that when they leave the house and they are hit with now they have to manage college and a job or what apprentice, they're
Right.
not like floundering. They know, okay, right? Because this is
Mhm.
executive functioning skills, and I'm sure you've talked about this
Yeah. Oh, yes,
before.
many times.
But
Mm-hmm.
some people are just downloaded, just born
Yeah.
with this downloaded, while others, like, it takes a little bit of work to learn these skills.
Mm-hmm.
And not saying that they can't, but it just takes a little bit of practice and skill. So
Right.
let our kids go out into the world with these skills, to manage
Right.
their life and be successful.
Mhm. And they learn best through example. So if we're
Yep.
actually doing it and we're
Yes.
implementing it, they see the benefits of it, then they're more likely to do it themselves.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and especially like I'm a huge fan of having family meetings, like weekly family meetings, because I'll tell you, this is really crazy. I'll tell you my schedule right now. So we're living
Yeah.
in Michigan, but literally my husband flies to California every week. Okay,
Oh,
so
wow. Oh.
so he's gone, and when he comes back, I'm like, okay, before you even jump in, like we need to sync our calendars up because you're on Pacific time and I'm here. And it's
Right.
crazy. I like would die if I didn't have this, right?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot going on, and I
Yeah,
totally get that. Yes.
yeah,
So we had one question from a
sure,
viewer that, and it's actually a multiple part question. So
sure.
I kind of want to make sure we get to that before we wrap up. And if you're watching, I see we have quite a few viewers watching the show. If you have questions about this, any comments, please do put them in the feed wherever you're watching from. We'd love to include you in our conversation. But Cynthia asked a question about minimizing her daughter's learning issues of dyslexia and ADHD, being rather inattentive. That's probably what's leading to most of it. How can I determine what to do to best help her in the future? What activities should I continue and for how long? And also, how do I make room for more fun for her to increase her self motivation? Lots of stuff involved in that one.
Oh, yeah, that's a
But,
great question, and that speaks to my heart because my oldest has dyslexia, and we've been down this
mm,
road. And I will say this for especially with kids with dyslexia, but for anybody in general, it kind of goes hand in hand that kids with dyslexia have poor working memory. It just goes hand in hand. And so
okay.
anytime that you can include multi-sensory into your teaching, the brain is kind of
Right.
like, hey, we should probably learn this. So a good example of
Hmm.
this, and Cynthia, if you're looking for ideas, you could ask ChatGPT for creative
Yes.
ways to incorporate movement. But a good example of this is when I was having my kids learn my phone number. So someone
Hmm.
that has dyslexia, that has poor working memory, it's a monumental task at the age of 7 to learn somebody's phone number, right? So what we
Yeah.
did we kind of put like a put tape on the floor, like a tic-tac-toe board, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And so the numbers, I would say, okay, so jump to the number, say the number, look at the number. So what are you doing?
Hmm.
You're moving, you're seeing it, and you're saying it out loud. So you go through that and do
Right.
that. And he probably learned it in like a fraction of the time if I was just like, okay,
Hmm.
remember this. So Cynthia,
Right.
anytime that you can use a multi-sensory, that the brain is touch, feel, sight, taste, sound, whatever. Incorporate
Hmm.
as many of those as possible. She's gonna be more engaged, which means that she's gonna have
Right.
more fun, and it's
Hmm.
gonna be more efficient, especially if maybe her working memory is a little bit lagging. And I want to say to that,
Yeah.
Cynthia, I don't even know if um, her working memory is poor, but just from my own experience, it gets better. 100%
Hmm.
it gets better
Right.
just with time and age. So hang in there. I'm sure you're doing a great job, but yeah, multi-sensory, anytime that you can add that to the lesson is going to be great.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yes. And yeah, just making it more fun, like you said.
Yeah,
Multisensory is always more fun. And
right,
that just seems to engage another part of their brain too.
right.
Instead of just the workbooks or the lessons that are
So
dry.
so this is really interesting. I just listened to this TED Talk, and I'm sure that there are probably parents that would be like, "Oh, I would never do that." But this guy actually goes, and he's a professor. I don't even remember what college he was at, but he goes on and talks about how playing video games while listening to lectures is actually helping the brain retain and gain the information that it needs. And so he was a big proponent of that. And I was like, oh, that's so interesting. I had never heard that before, but I got
That's how
some
my oldest made it through writing in college, is he
nice.
played video
Okay.
games when he wrote. And I was like, how
Wow.
is this working? But he was getting A's, so I could not say anything against it.
Okay.
But my brain would not be, I don't know. I just don't know how it happens.
Well, so and I think that's the great thing about homeschooling too, is that we can take these
Mhm.
different ideas and implement that, and then we don't have to have butt and seat all the time just sitting there. So yeah, creative
Right.
ways.
Absolutely. Yes. Try them out. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
some people say their energy is up when they listen to music. Some people say it's
Mhm.
distracting, but yeah, you just don't know. We don't know until you try it.
Yeah.
And so it's good. Just do it as an experiment.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
yeah, absolutely. Well, awesome. So, talk to me a little bit about, you wrote a book,
Yeah,
and I would love for you to share a little bit of info that I'm going to share in the show notes, a link to that in your
sure.
website, and I'll have you talk about that too. But what's in the book that you wrote and title?
Yeah, so the book is called You Can Homeschool, and I wrote it because probably about 4 years into homeschooling, I just had like the same questions over and over and over. Why are you homeschooling? What are you doing? How is it working? And my
Yeah.
husband was like, "You should just write a book." And I was like, "Okay, I guess I'll write a book." But yeah, really, the sentiment behind it is just to I really want to motivate people who are maybe like on the bridge, thinking, should I homeschool? Should I not? Give it a shot.
Mm,
If it doesn't work out, you can always course correct and send them. But who knows what could come of it?
right.
Especially kids with learning differences. I'm not
Mhm.
seeing how they fit into our traditional education system. I'm not saying
You
all
just
schools,
don't. Yeah.
right? There are some
Hmm.
schools doing great things, but if you do, like, embrace that time, right? So I
Hmm.
wrote it to really just motivate and encourage people. And to really, the sentiment behind it is to homeschool out of love, not fear.
Yeah.
Because when we
I
let
love
fear lead
that.
the way, it's very,
Mm,
just minimizing and we can't see. But when we're operating from love, we have endless possibilities of what we
absolutely.
can do and implement homeschooling. And so there's a number of different things in there. I talk about, practical things like that. I talk about teaching strategies. I taught in the school system and done like extensive research on the most effective teaching
Hmm.
strategies and practices. Yeah, and just a couple of stories that I have from my own life and kids. But really, it's just like, hey,
Yeah.
you can do this. You got this. Go other. Try this. Try that. Try this. Try that. If it doesn't work, try this. So lots of ideas.
Yeah, that's awesome. Some good ideas and motivation and encouragement. So
Hmm,
that's
hmm, hmm.
great. And then what about your website? Homeschoolmovement.com.
Yeah, homeschoolmovement.com. To be 100% honest, I haven't really posted on there a lot, but it does have an extensive amount of blogs. Just kind of the same thing, empowering, motivating. I do
Hmm,
have a couple of interviews on there just to get some insight on different ideas of how to implement some different homeschool strategies. Just
awesome.
all in the vein of trying to help people. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And I'll put the link for that in the show notes as well if you're
cool.
looking to get that information. So yeah, it's good to learn from others' experience. I the more and more that I do this podcast, people are like, "Thank you. After you're done
Mm,
homeschooling, you just continued to support this community because it seems like we we've been there, done that, we move on, and there's a lot of wisdom in years where you're in the thick of it and in the struggle. And so thank you for sharing with us from your experience, but your experience, even in the education system and just the things that you've read and put into practice in your own life. It just helps others to understand that this is doable,
mhm,
and it can help. And so thank
mhm.
you for all that you shared.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, yeah. So you have any closing comments to share with our audience?
Yeah. If you're in the thick of it right now and you're feeling just so frustrated and you don't really know what to do, just take a beat, right? Like we talked about, and step
Right.
back and just enjoy your kids. Operate
Hmm,
from love. Don't operate from fear of
absolutely.
failing, the fear of our kids not fitting in, the fear of the future. I mean,
Right.
we're on this planet for such a short amount of time. Just
Mhm.
realize the space that you're in, and that in the new season, your kids are going to be gone. And just
Yeah.
take a step back and see what you can do. Remember, every week is a mini experiment. Just operate, like I said, homeschool out of love, not fear.
Yeah. So, so good. And yes, absolutely. Take those words to heart. It does go by very fast. And if we are just fearful, there's so much that we don't do that we should be doing, and there's so much that we do that we shouldn't be doing.
Mm,
And so
absolutely.
so yes, let that fear go.
Mm,
God is fear.
mm,
He's in, we will find that perfect peace when
mm.
we're in his will. And
Yeah.
so it's very important to to be mindful of, because I
To
think
be
we do a
mind,
lot of planning out of fear more than
be
anything
yeah,
else.
yeah, and when you can operate from away from fear, and it might be a daily thing. This is okay
Mm,
today, God. I'm not gonna walk in fear. I'm not gonna
yeah.
homeschool in fear, right? And then you'll
Mhm.
see different opportunities pop up and to homeschool
They
differently.
do, yes,
Mm,
and, going back to schedules, when we started our homeschool years, sometimes there were subjects I hadn't decided on yet, because I didn't wanna fill a space with something that was okay.
mm,
I felt like, "No, there's something still that would fit better, but I don't know what it is." And I
mm,
would just leave that gap. I would start teaching what I had, and you know what? When the timing was right, God always provided what
mm,
I needed for those subjects,
mm,
and what I needed to teach. And we wouldn't have had room, or we would have spent the money on something else that would have taken that spot.
right.
So it's best to just wait
Yeah.
and do it what you have.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Well said. Well said.
so good. Yeah. Well, thank you, Rachel, so much for sharing with us. I know we had a struggle a bit getting this scheduled. We've been going back and forth for months. So I'm glad it finally worked out, and I had you on, and you got to share on this important topic. And especially as people are kind of figuring, maybe this year's not been a good year for schedules,
Mm, mhm.
then try some things out. Don't give up on homeschooling.
Yeah.
Try some things out towards the end of the year. You got a couple months left, and then approach your next year with maybe some more ammunition in your pocket of how to plan more effectively for
Right.
next year. So,
Right.
yeah.
And like we said, the key is to bringing the kids into the mix in the planning.
Yes,
That's huge
absolutely.
for the
Mhm.
buy-in. Mhm.
Yes, so good. Yeah, yeah. Well, next week we are going to talk about unleashing your students' learning potential, and it- our guest says it's the ultimate approach. We're going to talk about parent-child relationships, and
Mm.
just how you can use that relationship to power your connection with your child and your ability to teach them. So if you feel like there's some struggle in those relationships, my guest is really going to talk about how you can work on rebuilding, building, and making those bonds stronger, so that you can teach your child more effectively from that standpoint too. Because, yeah. So anyways, we're going to talk about that at same time, same place. Have a great week, everybody. Thanks again, Rachel. I appreciate you taking time out to be with us, and I will see you back here next week. Take care and God bless. Bye, everybody.
This is Empowering Homeschool Conversations, provided by SPED Homeschool. Go to spedhomeschool.com to get resources and support for teaching your unique learner at home.